Those who look at religion from the outside often see a world of rules, regulations, and obligation. To be sure, all religions have various prescriptions for living the kind of life espoused within their particular teachings. For every religion offers answers to the problems inherent in human life, often by proscribing and prescribing various behaviours, rituals, and formulae. Of course, even those who are skeptical of rules are sometimes won over because the rules make sense of the human condition, or because they present a black and white simplicity that offers a sense of safety. But those who remain skeptics often do so because ritual, rule, and obligation are seen as the noose around the neck of freedom. This is a question commonly asked of by non-religious people who are wondering about all the rules of Christianity. Skeptic or believer, there is often ambivalence between rules curbing freedom and the comfort they bring to society. The antinomianism, that is, people who believe that Christians are released by grace from the obligation of observing the moral law, are wrong, because the fact remains that it is the moral law that sets the boundaries of Christian life. This view is inherent in anarchy that goes against the proper flourishing of society. Regardless of whether or not a god is invoked, individuals and communities often judge themselves according to their adherence to the rules, and this is simply common sense. After all, how can beliefs be divorced from behavior, or ethics divorced from external measurements? Still, most believers want to show that there is more to the story of religion than rules, even as they sometimes feed into the skeptical critique by frequently pointing out deviations from those rules. So if there is more to the story, how should the narrative read? Part of the narrative begins in the post-exile writings of the prophets of Israel. For example, the people of God believed they were observing the rules by keeping the ritual of the fast days, both as a sign of their repentance and as a requirement of asking blessings from God. Yet the voice of God speaks through the prophet Isaiah, saying in Isaiah chapter 58, verses 1 to 3, "Cry loud, do not hold back. Lift up your voice like a trumpet. Declare to my people their transgressions, to the house of Jacob their sins. Yet they seek me daily and delight to know my ways, as if they are a nation that did righteousness and did not forsake the judgment of their God. They ask me for righteous judgments. They delight to draw near to God." These words must have sounded piercing in their ears, for they believed they were following the rules of God. Day after day they sought the Lord and wanted to know God's ways. They were following the rules, they thought, but instead Isaiah tells them that they are in rebellion against God and lawlessness. But the narrative continues. The rules God had given in the law were not simply about ritual performance or to provide a self-righteous standard of measurement. Instead, the fast God ordained involved a rule that transformed lives. Even though a rule was being followed in the ritual of fasting, its true intention was not understood. As we continue through Isaiah chapter 58, we read, "Why have we fasted, and you see it not? Why have we humbled ourselves, and you take no knowledge of it? Behold, in the day of your fast you seek your pleasure and oppress all your workers. Behold, your fast only to quarrel and to fight and to hit with a wicked fist. Fasting like yours this day will not make your voice to be heard on high. Is such the fast that I choose, a day for a person to humble himself? Is it to bow down his head like reed, and to spread sackcloth and ashes under him? Will you call this a fast, and a day acceptable to the Lord? Look, you serve your own interests on your fast day, and oppress all your workers. Look, you fast only to quarrel and to fight, to strike with a wicked fist. Such fasting as you do today will not make your voice heard on high. The rule of fasting was not just abstaining from food, but abstaining from all the perpetuated injustice and oppression. Is it not this the fast that I choose, to loose the bonds of wickedness, to undo the straps of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry, and bring the homeless poor into your house? When you see the naked, to cover him, and not to hide yourself from your own flesh? The rules of God, when rightly understood, are meant to bring life, liberty, and freedom. When rightly applied, they lead to action that feeds, nourishes, and protects. Religion is about rules, but not simply as measurements of self-righteousness or showing others where they fall short. After all, even the pious Saul of Tarsus discovered that his actions to preserve the religious purity of Jewish belief by persecuting Christians was actually a form of persecution against the very God he claimed to serve. As in Acts chapter 9, verses 1 to 9. But Saul, still breathing threats and murder against the disciples of the Lord, went to the high priest and asked him for letters to the synagogues at Damascus, so that if he found any belonging to the way, men or women, he might bring them bound to Jerusalem. Now as he went on his way, he approached Damascus, and suddenly a light from heaven shone around him. And falling to the ground, he heard a voice saying to him, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And he said, Who are you, Lord? And he said, I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. But rise and enter the city, and you will be told what you are to do. The men who are traveling with him stood speechless, hearing the voice but seeing no one. Saul rose from the ground, and although his eyes were open, he saw nothing. So they led him by the hand and brought him to Damascus. And for 3 days he was without sight, and neither ate nor drank. In Jesus of Nazareth, the narrative of rules finds its fulfillment. Jesus insisted that those who followed him must have a righteousness that is exceeded the scribes and Pharisees, as in Matthew chapter 5, verse 20. For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Indeed, the followers of Jesus must go beyond the ritual of rules to their intention. It is not a coincidence that he invoked the rule of Isaiah at the beginning of his public ministry in Luke chapter 4, verse 18. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to set free those who are downtrodden, to proclaim the favorable year of the Lord. The rule of Jesus brings life to those with the least hope of finding it. For those who might be skeptical of religion because of the rules, Jesus reveals a new narrative. For those who seek to follow His example, keeping the rules yields life.